The state of Texas is a tapestry of contrasts. Vast, silent plains give way to dense, humming urban grids. In one of those quiet patches, a dot on the map called Italy, Texas, a girl named Shelley Nance began to fill her corner of the world with color. This isn't a metaphor. She was an artist, the kind who carried a sketchbook like other kids carried phones, her fingers permanently smudged with charcoal or pastel. Her parents' home was a gallery of her evolution. Early drawings of horses taped to the refrigerator, more sophisticated portraits matted and framed in the hallway. The air in that house smelled of ambition and Krylon spray fixative. They weren't rich, but they supported the dream. They bought the pads, the nice pencils, drove her to competitions. They saw it not as a hobby, but as a future. And when the acceptance letter from the Art Institute of Dallas arrived, it felt like a validation. A small-town talent was heading to the big city. Dallas in 2009 was a specific kind of American ecosystem. The Art Institute was nestled in a commercial district, a place of strip malls, fast food, and apartment complexes with names like The Lakes or Highland Oaks that promised more tranquility than they ever delivered. Shelley's apartment in Lake Highlands was a classic starter space. Beige carpet, off-white walls, a balcony overlooking a parking lot. She split the rent with another art student, Ashley Vera. Their living room was a chaotic studio, canvases leaning against a sofa from Goodwill, a makeshift light box on the kitchen table, the constant low hum of a computer rendering a digital design. This was the grind. Classes all day, freelance logo work at night, cheap wine, and dreams of a real studio, of being discovered. It was exhausting and exhilarating. And then there was Nathan. Nathan Shuck was in her program, a graphic designer with a gentle demeanor. They connected over shared critiques, all-nighters in the computer lab, a mutual understanding of the pressure. Their relationship was a calm center in the chaos. He'd come over, they'd order a pizza, work side by side, his presence a quiet comfort. He was, by all accounts, a good guy, the kind who remembered to buy more gesso when he used hers. Their biggest arguments were about typography or color theory. It was normal. It was healthy. It was, for all intents and purposes, boring in the very best way. But every ecosystem has its shadows. Nathan had a roommate, Daniel William. He wasn't in the art program. He worked a nondescript job, maybe in data entry or retail, the kind of job people forget to ask about. He was quiet, a presence that faded into the beige walls of the apartment he shared with Nathan. To Nathan, Daniel was just an easy roommate. Paid his share on time, kept to himself, was there to watch a game or share a beer, a convenient, low-maintenance friendship. To Shelley, he was initially just a footnote. Nathan's roommate. She'd smile politely when they crossed paths, but she began to notice the weight of his silence. He'd be in the kitchen when she came over, would nod but not speak, his eyes lingering a beat too long. She mentioned it once to Nathan, a casual, "Your roommate is kinda intense, huh?" Nathan shrugged it off. "That's just Daniel. He's shy." So she let it go. You don't make waves over a feeling. You don't call the police because someone is too quiet. But Daniel's world was not quiet. His world was a vortex of fixation. While Nathan saw a convenient friend, Daniel saw a savior. Nathan's easy kindness was a lifeline Daniel had clutched with desperate hands. Their apartment wasn't a shared living space, it was Daniel's sanctuary. And Shelley Nance, with her sketchbooks and her laugh and her rightful claim on Nathan's time, wasn't just a girlfriend. She was an invasive species. She was the brushstroke of wrong color that ruined the entire painting he had meticulously constructed in his mind. A painting where it was just him and Nathan, a perfect, closed loop of companionship. Every pizza night she had with Nathan was a theft. Every text message she sent was an intrusion. His jealousy wasn't a hot flame. It was a cold, calcifying resin, hardening around him day by day. He started a journal, not a diary of thoughts, but a ledger of grievances. She called 3 times today. He left early to see her. She doesn't understand him like I do. The words were a silent scream on the page. He began to follow her, not constantly, but enough. He'd drive past her apartment complex after work. He knew her schedule. He knew when Ashley was out of town. He was studying her, like a problem that needed solving. And in the economy of his twisted mind, there was only one solution. If you remove the wrong color, the painting can be perfect again. He just needed the right tools. The friction was becoming audible. It was in the small things, the details you'd miss if you weren't living it. Nathan would be telling a story about his weekend with Shelley, and Daniel would get up abruptly, the legs of his chair scraping the linoleum, and leave the room without a word. He'd make a comment under his breath when Nathan's phone buzzed with a text. There she is again. It was passive, a low-grade irritant. Nathan, conflict-averse, would try to laugh it off. Dude, don't be like that. But he didn't push. He didn't sit Daniel down for a serious talk. He avoided the rock in the shoe, hoping it would just smooth itself out. This is a fatal American courtesy, the reluctance to confront the awkward, to name the strange thing in the room. We call it minding your own business, even when the business is festering right next to you. Shelley felt it more acutely. The vibe was off. She started asking Nathan to come to her place more often. It's just more comfortable, she'd say. She didn't want to articulate the chill she felt in Daniel's presence, the way his eyes felt like a physical weight. She was a young woman taught to be polite, to give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's just awkward. Maybe he's on the spectrum. You don't want to be the girl who causes drama. So she internalized the discomfort, letting it curdle into a low-level anxiety she only shared in fragments with Ashley. Nathan's roommate gives me the creeps, she'd say, rolling her eyes, trying to make it a joke. But the eyes didn't lie. Ashley would nod. Yeah, he's a weird one. And that was that. The conversation would move to a project deadline or a new band. The alarm was noted and then silenced. Meanwhile, Daniel's journal entries were shedding their passivity. The handwriting grew tighter, more aggressive. She's a cancer, he wrote. She's consuming him. He can't see it because she's blinded him. I have to make him see. I have to cut it out. The metaphor had become a blueprint. On September 10th, 2009, a Thursday, the pressure in his mind reached its critical point. Ashley was out of town. Nathan had mentioned he'd be working late on a portfolio piece. The stage, in Daniel's view, was set. He drove to a 24-hour Walmart off Forest Lane. This is where the abstract became concrete. This is where the thought became a deed. He moved through the blinding fluorescent aisles with a grim, practical focus. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a guy doing an errand. He picked up a box of heavy-duty Ziploc bags, a roll of duct tape, a pair of generic, sturdy latex gloves, a bottle of bleach-based cleaner, and a knife. Not a hunting knife, not something dramatic. A utilitarian kitchen knife from a set, its plastic handle bright blue. He paid in cash. The receipt spat out of the register at 9:48 p.m., a timestamp for a point of no return. He drove to Shelley's apartment complex. He didn't have to skulk. He'd been there before with Nathan. He knew the door code for the main entrance, or he caught the door as another tenant left. He walked the familiar hallway. He knocked on her door, and here lies the final, devastating tragedy of Shelley Nance's politeness. She looked through the peephole. She saw Daniel, Nathan's roommate. She was likely confused, maybe concerned Nathan had sent him with a message. She did not see a threat. She saw a familiar, if awkward, face. She unchained the door. She opened it. She might have even smiled. "Hey, Daniel, is everything okay?" He probably mumbled something about Nathan, about forgetting something. She let him in. She turned her back. She was wearing pajama shorts and a t-shirt. She was safe in her own home. What happened next was a blizzard of violence so extreme, it defied reason. 42 times. The medical examiner would later stress this wasn't a frenzy. It was a determined, systematic overkill. Each plunge of that blue-handled knife was an erasure. He wasn't just killing a rival. He was trying to obliterate the very idea of her from Nathan's world. The attack was focused on her back, her neck. She was likely face down on her bed, trying to bury herself in the mattress, when most of the wounds were inflicted. The room, that small sanctuary of art and dreams, became a slaughterhouse. The only sound was the terrible, wet silence of the act itself. When it was done, Daniel stood in the stillness. He was methodical. He placed the knife in one of the Ziploc bags. He gathered some clumps of Shelley's hair, sticky with blood, and put them in another. A trophy? A piece of evidence to plant later? We can only guess at the logic of a shattered mind. He took a moment to look at his sneakers, splattered with red. He changed them for a pair he'd brought in his bag, placing the soiled ones inside a plastic sack. He gave the doorknob a wipe. He did not ransack the room. He did not touch her laptop or her wallet. The mission was complete. He let himself out, walked back to his car, and drove into the... For 2 days, the apartment held its secret. The air conditioning cycled on and off. A fly found its way in, buzzing against the window of the sealed room. Down the hall, neighbors lived their lives, watching TV, arguing about bills, completely unaware of the horror resting just behind a cheap hollow core door. On the morning of September 11th, a date already heavy with national tragedy, Ashley Vera returned from her trip. She felt the emptiness immediately. Apartments have a sound, a hum of occupancy. This one was dead silent. She called out for Shelley. Nothing. Maybe she's at Nathan's, she thought, but Shelley's car was in the lot. A slow, cold dread began to pool in Ashley's stomach. She walked to Shelley's bedroom door. It was slightly ajar. That was wrong. Shelley always slept with it closed. Ashley pushed it open. The scene was one of such visceral, intimate violence that it bypassed comprehension and went straight to primal terror. The smell hit first, metallic, coppery, thick. Then the sight. Shelley, small and broken on the bed, surrounded by a vast dark stain that had soaked through the sheets and into the mattress. Ashley's brain short-circuited. She backed out of the room, her hand over her mouth. She didn't scream. She was in a vacuum of shock. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers slick and clumsy. The 911 call was a masterpiece of fractured communication. "My friend, there's blood. I think she's dead. Please hurry." The dispatcher's calm voice was a thread tethering her to a reality that had just been obliterated. The Dallas Police Department's response was swift and clinical. First responders secured a scene that was, in the parlance of detectives, highly emotive. The brutality was personal, obvious from the first glance. This was no burglary gone wrong. Homicide detectives, men and women with seen-it-all eyes, were visibly affected by the overkill. The crime scene technicians got to work in their white suits, moving like ghosts through the nightmare. They noted the lack of forced entry. They noted the absence of a struggle in the living room. They found the bloody footprint near the door, a size too small to be Shelley's. And in the kitchen trash can, almost taunting in its visibility, was a torn Ziploc bag with a few strands of long, bloody hair inside. It was a clue that felt like a message. The investigation initially followed the standard path. The boyfriend, Nathan Shuck, was destroyed. He provided his alibi. He was with friends, then home with Daniel. Detectives pressed, but his grief was raw and real. He had no history of violence, no motive. But during a consent search of his apartment, they found something bizarre. In Nathan's own closet, tucked behind some shoes, was a Ziploc bag. Inside was more of Shelley's hair and traces of her blood. Nathan was bewildered, horrified. "I didn't put that there." It was the first major crack. Someone was framing him or trying to. The focus shifted to his immediate circle, to his roommate. Daniel William presented himself as he always had, quiet, cooperative, a little nervous. He gave a statement. He was home that night. He watched a movie. He went to bed. His alibi was a shrug. But detectives are archaeologists of human behavior, and they began digging. They talked to Nathan's friends. The stories trickled out. Daniel's weird comments about Shelley, his palpable discomfort when she was around, the way he seemed to view Nathan as a possession. They obtained a warrant for Daniel's car, his room. In his closet, they found the sneakers. They looked clean, but under the spectral blue glow of luminol in the crime lab, they lit up like a neon sign. The chemical reaction revealed a ghostly map of blood spray, a pattern consistent with the attack. In his journal, they found the confession he'd written before the fact, the hatred spelled out in ballpoint pen, the plan implied in chilling phrases. The final nail came from the most mundane of places, Walmart asset protection. Detectives pulled the surveillance footage from the night of the 10th. There he was, pushing a cart, selecting the bags, the gloves, the cleaner, and the knife. The timestamp aligned perfectly. They tracked his debit card purchase of gas later that night, placing his car on the route between Walmart, Shelley's apartment, and his home. The digital footprint was a prison being built around him. He was arrested without incident. He maintained his blank facade, his quiet denial. "I didn't do anything." But the evidence was a mountain. The journal, the shoes, the Walmart tape, the phone records, the bloody hair in Nathan's closet that he'd clearly planted. The DA's office had a case that was, in their words, a slam dunk. The trial of Daniel William was not a whodunit, it was a whydunit, and the why was laid bare for the jury in all its pathetic, terrifying banality. The prosecution presented the journal entries as a roadmap to murder. They showed the Walmart video, frame by grim frame. A forensic expert explained how the blood on his shoes matched Shelley's DNA, and how the spray pattern indicated he was standing over her as she lay bleeding. Nathan took the stand, a shell of his former self, and recounted Daniel's growing hostility, his own tragic blindness to the obsession festering beside him. The most devastating moment came when Shelley's mother described identifying her daughter's body. She didn't yell. She spoke softly about the little girl who loved to draw horses, about the young woman whose future was stolen. The courtroom wept. The defense had little to work with. They argued Daniel was a loner, a weirdo, but not a killer. They suggested the evidence was circumstantial, that someone else could have planted it. It rang hollow. The jury was out for less than a day, guilty of capital murder. When the judge asked Daniel if he had anything to say before sentencing, he remained silent, staring at a point on the wall. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No death penalty, but a different kind of death, a lifetime of anonymity in a system designed to make men disappear. In the aftermath, the community sought meaning where there was none. The Art Institute established a scholarship in Shelley Nance's name, a small grant each year for a promising art student. It's a good thing, a bright spot, but it doesn't fill the hole. Her parents in Italy, Texas, became advocates for victims' rights, their lives forever divided into a before and an after. Nathan eventually left Dallas, the memories too dense to navigate. The story of Shelley Nance endures as a particularly American ghost story. It didn't happen in a dark alley. It happened in a well-lit apartment with a security door. The monster wasn't a stranger. He was the quiet roommate, the one who paid his rent on time. It's a story about the lethal potential of ordinary jealousy and the catastrophic cost of politeness in the face of creeping evil. Shelley's artwork, what remains of it, shows a remarkable talent, a keen eye for light and shadow. She understood how to make something beautiful out of blank space. Her killer, in his grotesque way, also worked in negative space. He tried to create his perfect picture by removing what he saw as a flaw, but all he created was a void. A permanent, aching void where a vibrant young woman was supposed to be, and that's the final, haunting image. Not of violence, but of absence. An empty desk in an art class, a silent phone, a future of breathtaking possibility, reduced to a case number and a memory that still brings tears to the eyes of those who remember the girl who could make anything beautiful, except the heart of the man who destroyed her.